I'd just like to say that Carol and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me. It's seeing is believing.
In the world of royalty, where every gesture is calculated and every silence speaks volumes, it is often the quietest decisions that create the loudest echoes. And this time, it wasn't a royal decree or a public scandal that shook the palace, it was a deeply personal choice made by Carole Middleton. For years, she had remained in the background. Graceful, composed, and unwaveringly supportive of her daughter Catherine, Princess of Wales, Carole was often described as the steady force behind the future queen. But behind the polished smiles and carefully staged appearances, a story had been unfolding, one of quiet resilience, growing tension, and ultimately, a decision that would change everything. And at the center of this emotional storm stood Queen Camilla. To understand the weight of Carole's decision, one must first understand the worlds these two women came from. Carole Middleton was not born into aristocracy. She built her life through determination and hard work, alongside her husband Michael. From modest beginnings to running a successful business, she embodied a modern, self-made success story. Her values were grounded in family, effort, and authenticity. On the other hand, Queen Camilla represented tradition, deeply rooted in aristocratic heritage and royal customs. She understood the unspoken rules of hierarchy, lineage, and legacy. In many ways, she was the perfect embodiment of the institution. When their worlds collided through the marriage of Prince William and Catherine in 2011, the differences were subtle at first, but impossible to ignore. Publicly, everything appeared harmonious. Smiles were exchanged, photographs taken, and polite conversations maintained. But behind the palace doors, there were whispers of discomfort, of distance, and of a divide that could not easily be bridged. In the early years after the royal wedding, Carole tried her best to adapt. She respected protocol, remained dignified, and avoided drawing attention to herself. But small moments began to accumulate. Invitations would arrive late, or not at all. Decisions about family events were made without her input. Even during deeply personal milestones, her presence often felt managed. It wasn't hostility in the traditional sense. It was quieter than that. A subtle distancing. A message delivered without words. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla had fully embraced her role within the monarchy. Having once been seen as an outsider herself, she now stood as a guardian of tradition. And with that role came a certain perspective, one that prioritized structure, legacy, and control. To some observers, it seemed that Carole's growing influence, especially as the mother of the future queen, was viewed as something that needed to be carefully balanced, if not quietly limited. For Carole, however, this wasn't about status. It was about family. She watched as her daughter navigated the immense pressures of royal life, balancing duty with personal identity. She saw the toll it took. The carefully scheduled appearances, the constant scrutiny, the expectations that left little room for normalcy. When Prince George was born in 2013, Carole naturally wanted to be involved. Like any grandmother, she hoped to offer support, guidance, and love. But royal life had its own structure. Nannies were appointed. Schedules were fixed. Access was controlled. What should have been simple family moments became formal arrangements. And while Catherine did her best to maintain that connection, the system surrounding her made it increasingly difficult. Years passed, and the quiet tension never truly disappeared. Instead, it evolved, becoming less visible but more deeply felt. Then came a moment that, for Carole, changed everything. At a private royal gathering, conversations turned toward heritage, tradition, and the evolving nature of society. Among those discussions were remarks, subtle but pointed, about the importance of lineage over newly acquired success. No names were mentioned, but the meaning was clear. For Carole, it was a realization. No matter how gracefully she conducted herself, no matter how much she supported the monarchy, she would always be seen as different. Not equal. Not fully accepted. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Carole didn't respond with anger. She didn't create a public scene. Instead, she did something far more powerful. She stepped back. Gradually, she began to withdraw from royal events. Her appearances became less frequent. Invitations that once held significance were quietly declined. She stopped trying to fit into a system that had never fully embraced her. But this wasn't a retreat. It was a statement. A decision to reclaim her space, her identity, and her dignity. Behind the scenes, she focused on what mattered most: her family, her values, and the legacy she wanted to preserve. Carole's absence did not go unnoticed. Royal observers began to question why she was no longer present at events where she once stood proudly. The shift was subtle, but significant. Within the palace, the change created unease. Because in a world built on tradition and predictability, unpredictability is unsettling. And Carole Middleton had just introduced exactly that. For Queen Camilla, this development was unexpected. Over the years, she had come to understand the delicate balance of influence within the royal family. She had worked hard to secure her position, to maintain stability, and to uphold tradition. But Carole's decision disrupted that balance. It wasn't confrontational. It wasn't loud. But it was undeniable. Reports began to circulate that during a private meeting, the emotional weight of the situation became too much. The realization that years of quiet tension had led to this moment, that the divide had not been resolved but deepened, was overwhelming. And for the first time, Queen Camilla was said to have been visibly shaken, even brought to tears. What makes this story so compelling is not conflict, it's conviction. Carole Middleton did not seek power. She did not aim to challenge the monarchy. Her decision was rooted in something far simpler, yet far more profound: respect. She had spent years navigating a world that often treated her as an outsider. And when the time came, she chose not to fight that perception, but to rise above it. Her silence became her voice. Her absence became her message. Inside the palace, the impact was immediate. Conversations shifted. Relationships were reassessed. The delicate dynamics between tradition and modernity came into sharper focus. For Prince William and Catherine, the situation was deeply personal. They found themselves caught between two worlds: the institution they represented and the family that shaped them. Observers noted a subtle but important change: a stronger emphasis on balance, a quieter assertion of independence. It was as if Carole's decision had given them permission to redefine what it meant to belong. The royal family has always been a symbol of continuity, but it is also a reflection of change. Carole Middleton's decision may not have been loud, but its impact continues to resonate. Will it lead to a deeper understanding within the palace? Will it reshape the way family dynamics are handled in the future? Or will it remain an unspoken chapter in the long history of royal relationships? Only time will tell. In the end, this is not just a story about royalty. It is a story about identity, about respect, about the courage to stand firm without raising your voice.